Hitting your emergency fund goal feels like crossing a finish line. For a lot of people, that's exactly when the real mistake starts. An emergency fund is one of the most responsible things you can build. But there's a point where more of it stops being responsible and starts being expensive. Most people blow right past that point without ever noticing. I'm Frank. On this channel, we don't chase getting rich fast. We do the math on getting wealthy slowly. Today, I'm going to show you exactly where that point is and what it's quietly costing you to keep going past it. Nobody warns you about having too much emergency savings. Every piece of advice out there tells you to build one, and almost none of it tells you when to stop. So people don't stop. The number just keeps climbing year after year because more safety always feels like a good idea. Here's what that instinct misses. A savings account doesn't know the difference between month 1 of your emergency fund and month 100. It just sits there, earning next to nothing, whether you need it in a week or won't touch it for a decade. I know, it sounds counterintuitive to say, too much safety. Let's look at the actual math. Money in a savings account isn't just sitting still. It's actively losing ground. Inflation quietly erodes what it can buy every single year. And most savings accounts don't come close to keeping up. A properly sized emergency fund, usually 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, isn't the problem. That money is doing its job, being available, fast, without risk. The problem starts with dollar number 1 beyond that number, sitting in the exact same low-yield account instead of anywhere else. Every extra month of expenses you stack on top of your actual emergency fund is a month of growth you're giving up for a kind of safety you almost certainly don't need. Let's make this concrete. Say your essential monthly expenses are $4,000, and 6 months of that is $24,000, a solid, reasonable emergency fund. Now say you've actually got $40,000 sitting there because it felt safer to keep adding to it. That's $16,000 beyond what you need, earning maybe 0.5% in a typical savings account. Invested at a reasonable 7% average return instead, that same $16,000 would earn over $1,000 a year, compounding every year after that. Left in savings, it earns less than 100. That's not a rounding error. Over 10 or 20 years, that gap turns into tens of thousands of dollars you never see, for safety you are never going to use. Here's the part that gets skipped in most generic advice. 3 to 6 months isn't a universal law, it's a starting range. Where you actually land inside or outside, that range depends on your specific situation, not a rule you read once and never revisited. Someone with a stable salary, dual income household, and strong job security can often lean toward the lower end, closer to 3 months, because the odds of needing the full cushion at once are lower. Someone with variable income, a single income household, or a less stable industry has a real reason to lean higher, sometimes even beyond 6 months. The mistake isn't picking a number on that range. The mistake is picking a number once, years ago, and never checking whether your actual situation still justifies it. If your job got more stable, your number should probably come down. If it got less stable, it should probably go up. Most people set it once and forget to ever look again. Renee and Tomas both start with the same $4,000 in essential monthly expenses and the same starting point, 0 savings. Both build up to 6 months, $24,000, over about 2 years. From there, their paths split. Renee keeps saving into the same account, every spare dollar, because it feels responsible. 10 years later, she has close to $80,000 sitting in cash. Tomas caps his emergency fund at 6 months and invests everything beyond that instead. 10 years later, his cash position is the same $24,000, but his invested account is worth roughly $70,000 on top of that. They both did the responsible thing at the start. Only one of them kept being responsible about it as the years went on. None of this means bigger emergency funds are always wrong. There are real situations where holding more cash than the standard advice makes sense, and ignoring them is its own mistake. First, if your income is genuinely unpredictable, like commission-based work or running your own business, a larger cushion isn't overcaution. It's matching your safety net to your actual risk. Second, if you're planning a major known expense in the near future, like a health procedure or a career change with an income gap, holding extra cash for that specific purpose is planning, not fear. Third, if keeping a larger cash cushion is the only thing standing between you and panic-selling investments during a downturn, that cushion is doing real work. A bigger emergency fund that keeps you from making a much more expensive mistake elsewhere is worth its cost. There's a second mistake hiding inside this one. Even the emergency fund you do need is often sitting in the wrong place. A regular checking account often pays close to nothing. A high-yield savings account, sometimes paying 4 or 5 times more, still gives you access within a day or two for a real emergency, which is fast enough for almost every actual emergency people have. Moving your actual emergency fund from a low-yield checking account into a high-yield savings account costs you nothing in accessibility and can meaningfully soften the inflation loss on the part of your cushion you do need to keep in cash. It won't replace investing the excess beyond your target, but it's a 5-minute fix that makes even your properly sized fund work a little harder while it sits there waiting. So what do you actually do with this? 3 things. 1. Figure out your actual number. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, adjusted honestly for your specific income stability, not a number you picked once and forgot about. 2. Check where that money actually sits. If it's earning close to nothing in checking, move it to a high-yield savings account today. That alone is free money you're currently leaving on the table. 3. Anything beyond your actual number doesn't need to stay in cash. It can go to work in an investment account, still accessible if you truly needed it, just no longer being wasted. Let's make the redirect concrete. Say you find yourself with $35,000 in savings, and your real number, based on your expenses and situation, is $24,000. That means $11,000 has been sitting there doing almost nothing. You don't need to move it all at once if that feels uncomfortable. Moving it in 3 or 4 chunks over a few months smooths out the transition and gives you time to get comfortable seeing that money in an investment account instead of a savings account. What matters most isn't the speed of the move, it's actually making it. The $11,000 sitting in savings today will very likely still be close to $11,000 in 10 years, minus what inflation ate. Invested instead, there's a real chance it roughly doubles in that same window. The gap between those two outcomes is the actual cost of leaving it exactly where it is. Here's a 3-minute checkup you can do right now. Add up your essential monthly expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, insurance, minimum debt payments. Multiply that by the number of months that actually fits your situation, somewhere between 3 and 6. Now look at what's actually sitting in your savings account. If it's close to that number, you're in good shape. Maybe just move it to a higher yield account. If it's well beyond that number, the extra is a decision waiting to be made, not a safety net that needs to keep growing. This isn't about being reckless with your safety net. It's about making sure the size of that safety net is still a choice, and not just a habit that never got a second look. If you're watching this and you already know you're sitting on way more cash than you need, don't feel bad about it. Building that habit in the first place is harder than most people manage, and caution is a much better problem to have than the opposite. What matters now is just taking the next step. Pick one part of the excess, move it into a high-yield account or an investment account this week, and let that be the first small crack in a habit that's outlived its purpose. You don't have to fix all of it today. You just have to stop adding to a pile that's already big enough and start redirecting what comes next. An emergency fund is supposed to protect your future. Past a certain point, an oversized one quietly starts working against it instead. Next time, we're looking at a habit that looks like discipline from the outside, but might be quietly keeping you poorer than you think. If this made you want to go check your own number, subscribe. This channel is built for exactly this kind of patience.